Hillary was a leader of the feminist revolution. People forget it. You know, in the 90s, there was an element of radicalism to her feminism. You know, she was too right too soon.
This Christmas at the White House, Hillary Clinton seems very much the traditional First Lady, not the barnstorming brains behind national health care reform.
I want to welcome all of you to the White House. We, this year, chose the theme of the 12 Days of Christmas.
After the failure we had in universal health care, I felt terrible. I felt like, okay, I can't take on another project. I got to figure out what I can do that makes sense. So I did regroup with my staff, and we had a series of meetings that, you know, were painful and tearful and difficult.
We all discussed kind of how are we going to go forward here. And we decided that you should go overseas, pursue this passion you have on women's rights.
In other news, the First Lady's goodwill visit to South Asia has taken her to India.
The second leg of a 5-nation South Asia tour for Hillary Rodham Clinton and her daughter Chelsea.
I thought what a great experience it would be for Chelsea if she could go with me. I had never been to any of those places, so it was all new to me.
This is the first time a U.S. First Lady has been to this region since Jackie Kennedy visited in 1962. Mrs. Kennedy handed out lollipops to children and rode an elephant side saddle. Mrs. Clinton is seen as more a woman of substance, campaigning for better education and health care for women and children.
I remember being in this remote part of India, and women walked 13 hours to see and meet with Hillary Clinton.
I agree with all of you that women no longer should be silent.
Is this the one I worked on?
Yeah.
I was along on that trip. You know, we had the First Lady's press corps, and we land in Pakistan, and she went to a school for girls. And they wanted to be doctors, and they wanted to be lawyers, and they wanted to be teachers. They were just like any smart young women, but in a country that didn't allow that.
Oh, so you have 2 of your daughters who graduated already from this school, but now they have no further opportunities.
I remember she was blown away by that. And it was something that was very close to the core of her soul.
First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton continues her 12-day tour of South Asia today with a stop in Bangladesh.
What does it mean to have Mrs. Clinton come here?
Nobody came into this village. This is a part of the village that nobody will ever dare to come. Now comes the First Lady of the world, they say. The First Lady of the world is coming here. So we are important. And now they're standing tall because the whole of the world was watching.
Her international travel becomes a balm. Everywhere she goes, they greet her rapturously, and it's healing, I think, in some ways for her, because suddenly she's not being told she's, you know, a liberal shrew who is outside of her lane.
We had a great group of reporters with us, and they had a lot of interaction with her. You know, saw her let her hair down. And a lot of them said to me on that trip, she should do more of this. I mean, people should see what we see.
She was much different on this trip than I'd ever seen her before because the plane was off the record. We would get into all kinds of conversations, and Chelsea was there. I got to see her be Chelsea's mom, and she was a really great mom.
Certainly growing up, I had seen kind of personal attacks about my mom for her appearance, her working, her presumably also like not being a very good mother, like, oh, poor Chelsea, she must like have no time with her mom. And I thankfully remember that being like just totally ludicrous, like to tell me anything about like my mom, who is this like super present, super warm, like amazing mom. And from a very early age, I just realized like what people say or assert, you know, maybe like not even remotely reflective or related to reality.
It was an amazing trip, and without knowing it, very serendipitous, because When I was asked to speak at the Beijing Women's Conference, I had this very recent real-world experience about what was facing women in places like South Asia.
So Hillary's invited by the Secretary General of the United Nations to speak to the 4th UN World Conference on Women.
You're honorary chair of the International Conference on Women. They've got a September meeting scheduled for Beijing. Will you go there?
I don't know yet.
Well, the White House did not want me to go. The State Department did not want me to go because of China's human rights abuses. So there was almost a wall of opposition to my going.
Conservative leaders are still unhappy with the whole idea of the United Nations conference.
There's no interest in Hillary Clinton going to this women's conference. It's not an important conference. I mean, that's the great myth about this.
No, I think she should not go for all the reasons, the awkwardness of her political and diplomatic position in this funny office. We keep saying First Lady, capital F and L, as though it exists. And that's a fairly new invention of the American media.
Oh, no.
Well,
I don't think Truman would never have sent best Truman to
precisely.
China.
But
this does have
Eleanor Roosevelt would have gone.
It does, precisely.
At the same time, we're working on her speech, and there's tremendous speculation about her speech. That speech was shown to no one.
It was a very small group of people who worked on it, really small. And we did not have it vetted until we were on our way there. I think that was important because otherwise it would have been diluted. And we were determined, and she was determined not to dilute it.
I said, I want to push the envelope as far as we can push it.
First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton arrived in Beijing tonight for the largest UN gathering ever, the 4th World Conference on Women. She landed right in the middle of a controversy over stifling Chinese security measures and over demands that she speak out about human rights.
We worked and finalized the speech, didn't get much sleep at all. Did not know what to expect.
Those of us who have the opportunity to be here have the responsibility to speak for those who could not.
And it starts out very slow.
Yet much of the work we do...
There was no response as Hillary started delivering it, and Milan and I suddenly panicked.
And we kind of look at each other thinking, oh, gosh.
Like, we totally misjudged this. We misread this occasion. We are going to get her in big trouble. She's going to create an international issue, because nobody was reacting. They were all just sitting there stone-faced.
Families flourish, communities...
This crowd was all listening to translations, so there was always a delay. They weren't reacting immediately. You know, I kept waiting for it.
Here in Beijing.
And she begins to go into this crescendo.
For too long, the history of women has been a history of silence.
And goes through a litany of what is happening to women around the world.
It is a violation of human rights when women are doused with gasoline, set on fire, and burned to death because their marriage dowries are deemed too small.
Honor killings, dowry burnings, girls who have their life snuffed out.
Simply because they are born girls.
Domestic violence, rape as a tool of war, human trafficking. And as she's going through this, for each of them she's saying, and this is a violation of human rights. And you could see the audience begin to come completely enveloped into her speech.
If there is one message that echoes forth from this conference, let it be that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights once and for all.
She declared that women's rights are human rights. It redefined human rights around the world.
You know, I've traveled with her for many years after that, and people would run up clutching copies of that speech, reciting that line from it, like it was a manifesto, a validation of so many tens of millions of women, hundreds of millions of women around the world who have nobody speaking for them. No one ever had spoken for them.
The whole thing was just extraordinary. There's a picture of Hillary and Milan Revere and me on the plane going out. And I remember it was a women's moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, the First Lady, and Chelsea Clinton.
Today, the American people have spoken. They have told us to go forward. Today, our economy is stronger, our streets are safer, the world is more secure, and thank God our nation is more united.
By the time 96 came around, the economic plan was working. People saw it, and the economy was booming.
The economic bill was the most important thing. It reversed trickle-down economics, or what they called Reaganomics. Went back to arithmetic, invest and grow, and be prudent, and it sparked the longest peacetime recovery in history.
After the failure of the Clinton health care plan, Hillary spun immediately into getting health care for working class kids, the Children's Health Insurance Program.
Senator Teddy Kennedy said to me, well, I think I might be able to get Orrin Hatch, a Republican senator from Utah, to work with us. We were able to get it through the Senate, get it through the House, and pass the CHIP program that literally provides health insurance for kids about $10 million a year. We didn't get to universal health care coverage, but I think the debate we sometimes have, all or nothing, is the wrong debate. How do we get something done in an environment that's very partisan, filled with powerful special interests, and then keep going?